If you're over 40, there's a lie quietly destroying your life. And the most dangerous part? You probably believe it. The lie is this: your best years are behind you, that your body is declining, your opportunities are shrinking, your exciting days are over. Your story is mostly written, and now you're simply managing the slow descent. But what if the opposite is true? What if the years you've been taught to fear are actually the years that matter most? Today, I'm going to tell you about a man named Mike. At 47, he believed his life was winding down. 3 years later, he would do something that shocked everyone who knew him: his wife, his friends, even himself. And it all started with one uncomfortable question. A question I'll share with you later. Because once Mike asked it, he could never go back to living the same way.
He wasn't depressed. He wasn't broke. His marriage was okay. His job was okay. His health was okay. And that's exactly where millions of men get stuck. Okay. Not miserable enough to change. Not fulfilled enough to feel alive. Every morning he sat in his truck for a few extra minutes before work. Not because he loved the quiet, because he didn't want to get out. Nothing exciting was waiting. Just another Tuesday. Then another Wednesday. Then another year. And one Saturday afternoon, something happened. His wife pulled out an old photo album. There was Mike at 24, backpacking through Europe, laughing, sunburned, standing on a cliff in Ireland, looking completely alive. His wife smiled and said, "Who is that guy?" Everyone laughed. Mike laughed too. But that night he couldn't stop thinking about it. Who was that guy? And where did he go? But here's the strange thing. The answer wasn't what Mike thought, and it's probably not what you think either.
Quick question. When was the last time you did something for the first time? Not for work, not for your kids, not because you had to. For you. A new skill, a new place, a new challenge. How long has it been? 6 months? 3 years? 10? Most men don't realize this, but life doesn't become smaller because we age. Life becomes smaller because we stop expanding. And that's where Mike was, shrinking his life without noticing. A few days later, Mike was sitting alone in his kitchen, and he asked himself the question, the one that changed everything. Ready? Here it is. What if I'm not old? What if I'm stagnant? That question hit him harder than any birthday ever had, because suddenly the problem wasn't age. The problem was drift. And here's a line I want you to remember. Most men don't get old. They simply stop becoming. Let me say that again. Most men don't get old. They stop becoming. Age isn't the enemy. Stagnation is. In fact, research has repeatedly found that happiness often follows a U-shaped curve. People frequently experience a dip during midlife before becoming happier later on. Think about that. The age many men fear most often comes before some of their happiest years. The problem isn't getting older. The problem is believing the lie that life has already happened.
Most men think life is a mountain. You climb, reach the peak, then spend the rest of your life descending. But life isn't a mountain. It's a series of mountains. The tragedy is that many men spend decades staring at the peak behind them while never noticing the larger mountain waiting ahead. The 25-year-old mountain is gone. Good, you don't need it. There's another one waiting. A different mountain, a better mountain, one built from wisdom, purpose, confidence, perspective, and experience. Things young men would pay anything to have. 3 weeks later, Mike did something that seemed ridiculous. He joined a boxing gym at 47. Now here's the funny part. Mike walked into that gym convinced he was Rocky. 10 minutes later, he was breathing like an unplugged vacuum cleaner. Everything hurt. His shoulders hurt. His lungs hurt. Muscles he didn't know existed hurt. He came home exhausted. His wife asked, "How was it?" Mike said, "Humiliating." Then he smiled. "Can't wait to go back." And that smile mattered, because for the first time in years, he wasn't comfortable. He was engaged. And what happened next surprised even Mike, because the transformation had almost nothing to do with boxing. Boxing wasn't the goal. Boxing was proof. Proof that he could still become someone new. One new challenge led to another. He started reading again, walking daily,
losing weight, meeting new people. Then, something happened. A dream he'd buried decades earlier resurfaced. At 24, he'd always wanted to see Iceland. He never went. Life got busy. Responsibilities happened. Dream postponed, dream forgotten. Or so we thought. At 50 years old, Mike boarded a plane alone for the first time in over 20 years. Destination? Iceland. Standing beside a glacier, cold wind hitting his face, nobody around, he realized something. The man in the old photograph wasn't gone. He had simply been asleep. And suddenly, all those years he thought he'd lost didn't feel lost anymore. Because he understood something profound. Life wasn't ending. Life was expanding again.
If you're watching this channel, I need you to hear this. The world is obsessed with first primes, youth, potential, raw energy. But this channel isn't about your first prime. It's about your second prime. The years when confidence replaces insecurity. The years when wisdom replaces ego. The years when purpose replaces approval. If you're the kind of man who refuses to believe life peaks at 25, you're exactly who this channel is for. Every video we talk about health, confidence, vitality, purpose, and building a remarkable second half of life. So if that sounds like your journey, subscribe and join us. Because you're not alone. There are millions of men quietly deciding their story isn't finished yet.
Here's the biggest lesson. Age doesn't end a man's future. Certainty does. The moment you believe you already know how the rest of your life will unfold, growth stops, adventure stops, possibility stops, and when possibility stops, aging begins. The day you stop growing is the day aging truly starts, not before. One day, someone will stand up and tell the story of your life. The question isn't whether that day will come. It will. The question is, have the most interesting chapters already been written, or are they still ahead of you? Because the answer to that question isn't determined by your age. It's determined by your next decision, your next challenge, your next risk, your next first time. So after this video ends, ask yourself the same question Mike asked. What if I'm not old? What if I'm stagnant? And what would happen if I started becoming again? Because your best years may not be behind you. They may be waiting, patiently, for the man brave enough to go find them. And if you're committed to building your second prime, leave a comment below. I'm still becoming. Because the men who keep becoming are the men who never truly grow old.